Hello and welcome to another workshop video. In today's video, much like the last workshop video, I'm going to be focusing my efforts on improving the equipment that I already have in preparation for some up and coming builds. Today's video is going to be focused on my router table. So here you can see how my router table is set into my workbench. You may have already noticed what the problem is, but let me give you a quick demonstration. If there was a router in here and I was routing out this small piece, taking a little edge off, chamfering it down, not really a drama. Get a longer piece involved and all of a sudden the problem becomes obvious. That's right. Unfortunately, it sits too far in to my workbench. That means work can't flow over it nice and easily. This wouldn't usually be a drama because, let me just move these out of the way. Set this back. The router table comes with holes in that you could put little grubs in, and you tighten them down and they push up the table to match your workbench. Unfortunately, I didn't design this workbench with the router table in mind. So underneath, it looks a little bit like this. Just joists that were designed to support the workbench. So what's the plan, I hear you ask? The plan is to cut the existing joists flush with the recess that I've made for the router table. We are then going to add some more supports at the same height that go all the way around the inside recess of where the table sits. At this point, we could drop the router table back into position, put in some grub screws, tighten them down to bring the table flush with the worktop surface and call it good. But we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do, once we have this support all the way around the edges, we're then going to add more material to that all the way around to make this recess shallower than it needs to be, and then we're going to build a router sled. Yeah, we're going to build a router sled. This is going to obviously be used for this video to do the task in hand, but also will come in handy in future builds. But we'll talk about that later and we'll get into the build of that a little bit later on. But the first thing we have to do is take this worktop off and prepare ourselves to get cutting these joists. So I've very quickly just gone ahead and knocked up some framework and I've got it roughly clamped into position here, and I'm just ready to screw it on in, and then we can probably pop the top on and see how it looks for positioning. Now I measured twice and hopefully I'll only need to cut once, so let's see how it goes when it's all screwed together. As you can see here, that worked out pretty well, pretty much what I was aiming for. As for the right hand side here, as you look at it, all I'm probably going to do is just add another little bit of 18mm MDF like this, just to thicken that side up. Whether it even needs it or not, I don't know, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then it'll be on to raising it up a little bit, ready to be milled down. Okay, the next thing to do is put some glue all around this edge, and then we'll pop these into place like this. And we'll lay the router table on top of them to give them a little bit of weight, and we'll let the glue set while we move on to the next part of this video. Alright, welcome to the other side of the workshop, where I'm here with my plywood ready to build the router sled. And the first thing I have to do is to determine the width of the base of the router itself, so that I know how wide to cut my first board for the sled. So what I've done here is I've laid it on the plywood. I've used myself a square edge here, and I've allowed myself a little bit of room, and I'm just using this little ruler just to slide in and out there, so I know that it passes. The last thing you want to do is cut it too small, so that the router gets stuck halfway down the sled. And then when I measure that, I've got myself 118 centimeters. So the bottom of my sled needs to be 118 centimeters wide. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use our square and a pencil to mark out the plywood for our first cut. I'm going to use a track saw to make this cut, but there's something very important to remember when using a track saw. Hopefully you can easily see my line, but what I wanted to demonstrate here was the track saw. If you line it up exactly on the line, like this, then unless you've already added a couple of millimeters where the blade's going to cut along that splinter guard, then your workpiece is going to end up a couple of millimeters smaller than you anticipated. You could, however, spin the track around and cut on this side of the splinter guard. I can't quite put this down because my tripod for the camera's in the way, but you get the idea. If it's on this side, then you can put that exactly covering the line, or exactly on the line, and then your workpiece will be the right size. Now I am going to in fact cut it the way that I just had it, because I did remember to add that couple of millimeters on already for the width of the blade. So we shouldn't have any dramas there. So I'm going to line that up, and we're going to get the track saw out, and we're going to get our bottom piece cut. I've now marked out a depth of 7 centimeters to cut, which I'm going to do 3 times, and this is going to form all the sides of the router sled. Let's get cracking with that. Once all your wood is cut, it's just a few glue and nails to get it all assembled together. And now quickly over to the radial arm saw for some end pieces. And then we can just leave that to dry, ready for the next part. Now that the main body of the sled is put together, it's time to use the router itself to cut a slot in the router sled. So why don't we crack on with that? Okay, well that went well. Had a few little issues with the vacuum hose there, as you may or may not have seen. And well, I suppose at least the lucky thing is this isn't quite as dusty as MDF. Now the eagle eyes amongst you might have actually spotted a couple of holes that I've drilled in this already that I've not told you about. So why don't I show you what those are for now. Back over at the main workbench here, the supports that we've put in have dried nicely, all nice and rock solid. I'm really pleased with that. And now hopefully you can spot the holes that I have drilled in my sled match up with a T-Tac on my workbench. And then I've got a couple of these track gliders that hopefully we'll be able to slot onto here without too much trouble. Like that. And not massively necessary at this point in time, but they do come with little screw-on points there so that you can tighten it down. We're not too worried about that at the moment. And there you can see we're going to be able to move backwards and forwards on our workpiece that we're going to be working on, milling this down. So what's next to do? We're going to have to calculate the height in which we need to mill. Now I know that only about 4 mil or so has to come off of this, but we're going to get everything set up so that we can set the depth of the router perfectly. So to calibrate my cutting depth, all I've done is I've laid the router sled on top of the router table, and I am just a little bit deeper than I need to be, and all I'm going to do is just use the micro adjuster just to bring it up a little bit at a time, and then move the sled back to see if it fouls or not, and then move it up a smidge and back, and just keep doing that until it just glides across the top of my mock workpiece here. Just one little more. And even a little bit more. And that should just about do it, I think. Yeah, might even get away with a tad more. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely perfect. So that is our cutting depth now set. I'm not going to touch the router again with regards to cutting depth. I'm going to lock it off at that, and then I'm going to get it set up on the main workbench, and we'll start cutting. Alright, on to the final stage then. Everything's all set up and ready to go. I was going to try and suck up as much dust as possible with the vacuum, but the hose just isn't long enough and it'll probably slow me down more trying to keep the hose in place. So I'm just going to wear the trusty mask and see how it goes. The back part looks like it's working quite satisfyingly. I'm pleased with that. So it's just a slow process of getting each little bit done. So I'm going to crack on and we'll just make it look faster in the edit. It's fine. Okay, let's go then. I thought at this point, before I finish it, I might as well show you the difference between a bit that has been milled to the right depth and a bit that hasn't. And so not a lot has come off to create as much dust as I'm seeing. So it's looking pretty good, the whole thing's going pretty well. There's only this front edge to go really before I'm finished, so I'll crack on with doing that. And then we'll have a test fit of the table and hopefully everything will be great. And that's it done. It's come out quite nicely. I'm really pleased with the result. When I first put it in, I thought it was fractionally high, but I'm actually okay with that. Better fractionally high than fractionally low. Fractionally low, I'd still have exactly the same problem. At least now if I slide something off, it's not going to get caught on anything and it doesn't affect my movable fence any. So by fractionally high, I really do mean fractionally high. There we go. Another job done. Another job that has been on the list for a little while. Please, if you could, give this video a thumbs up. If you like seeing stuff like this, subscribe. Leave me any comments in the comment section below. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you have any better ideas? And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.